And we are live with our good friend Luke from Search Party Properties. Mate, how you doing?
Oh, mate, I'm fantastic. What a market it is. What a time it is. We're having great weather. What's not to be happy about right now?
Exactly. It is a great time to be in. Mate, I see you smashing results, and you are the industry expert in buyers advocacy. And thank you so much for coming on Jazz TV show and giving your
Absolutely.
insight and valuable information to our clients and the audience.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I really enjoy talking about property and the wealth creation strategies around it, and some ideas and thoughts and how people can, learn so much and be educated about property. It's not as simple as just going out there and putting your hand up at auction. There's just so much more into it, and I think having some awareness and education around it is paramount.
That is so critical. That is so critical. Mate, who's a buyer's agent and why do we need a buyer's agent? Let's talk.
Look, a buyer's agent is someone with expertise, skills, knowledge of the property market. We're looking at the data, the research, what markets are typically looking for that, where we look at typically low risk, good cash flow, good potential growth. Anyone seen my videos in the past to talk about that a lot, especially in the investing sense. In the home buying sense, it's a little bit different, but you've got to watch where the market's going in your individual areas that you're looking to buy. When do you typically want to sell that property? When do you want to buy that property in another area? Are you moving, from state to state? And I know there's a lot of people that have moved from Victoria to Queensland in the last couple of years with all what's happened with COVID, and looking for the warmer pastures of the sunny state in Queensland as an example. But you can really time these things well, but then circumstances do come up, and we see those different things at times where they're motivated sellers or distressed sales or deceased estates, and there's circumstances come up. We just want to be a more educated buyer, and we just want to do it a lot better, because it might end up saving you 50,000, 100,000, 200,000, even more. Like, I've seen people in the, through, if you take it back through COVID period, a lot of investors were selling because they wanted to reduce their debt level during that time. And what we did see is we were buying properties off people below that what they bought them for 10 years earlier. And then another 2 years later, we're up to that part where they bought it for initially. So in the 2 years, we made up for the 10 years of losses that they had. Obviously, we bought well, but the market also went up too.
And I think you guys are specialists in sourcing properties which are not listing on the market. I see your colleagues in the office, they're posting their videos saying this deal is there, and we can't see them online anywhere.
Well, that's the beauty of having ongoing clients come through. Real estate agents like dealing with us for a number of reasons. Not only because we've got a list of buyers on the readiness to going to buy, but there are also buyers that are educated about the market. They've gone through a discovery session, a property assessment session, a strategy session. So they've spent time, and they're not just going out on a Saturday, putting their hand up in auction and willy-nilly about what's going on in property, and they're not sure, especially they're going in without finance, right? Yeah. How many times have you seen that, where you might be in a situation, Jazz, where you've sold the property and then they're pulling out on finance clauses? So that does happen from time to time. The agents that we're dealing with, they often know that we're going to higher chance or percentage of us completing on a deal, whereas an individual home buyer or investor probably doesn't be in that situation.
We had a scenario where someone attended the auction, started raising their hands, and never registered or never attended the auction before or the open home, and glad that they didn't get the property. They missed out by $2,000, and they made an offer on another property with another agency and could not buy it because they could only borrow up to 700, and they were bidding up to 822.
That's absolutely ridiculous, and there's so much risk in doing that, and it could put people into bankruptcy in that sort of situation. Now, that's pretty extreme. What we want to give, I guess, through this video is just those little tips and tricks that you can, really gain if you want to excel that little bit more or that lot bit more when it comes to property investing and property home buying as well. Just knowing a little bit more about the market, knowing what goes on can really mean a big difference in, a loss or a win now and also down the track. I've sold properties in different markets, and it's the biggest financial decision you're going to make probably in your life each time you buy and sell property. So without going into using a buyer's agent or having the expertise yourself, you're really taking a backward step, and you're putting yourself into huge financial risk.
Absolutely. And I guess that's where the next question comes in. A lot of people ask about what goes into the process of due diligence when they're looking at investing. They've got money, they can invest in Melbourne, in the same suburb they're living in. Why they should, or how they can actually invest in a different market when they've got no idea about a different market, and they sometimes jump online, fly interstate, go into a market, attend the auction, just see the price is probably under what they can afford, which is obviously enticing. But why they shouldn't buy a property which is just cheap? What is the difference between a cheaper property and a right property?
Well, it's a massive difference. I bought in the Sydney market on my first property, no knowledge, no skills, no experience. Just bought, close to where I live, exactly what you're talking about there, Jazz. And I found myself in a situation where there was no growth on the property for 10 years. I overpaid for it. Property dropped in value, and then sort of slightly up and down for the next 10 years. Then 2012 is where we saw the growth in the market. So from 2002 to 2012, I had no growth on that particular property. And it just requires to do that data and research, look at the numbers. When we're talking about investing, we're looking at purely the numbers. People bring so much emotion. Yes, we're emotional you're human beings. We're often at that. What we're doing as a buyer's agent is purely looking at the numbers. Does it make sense for the numbers on the property deal with regards to cash flow potential for growth? Does it require, and also tenant appeal as well? You've got to be getting something that's going to be enough for a tenant to be moving into. Is it, and be careful not to overcapitalize on things like renovations.
Correct.
So that needs to be all looked at. And, what areas are going to perform better than others? What types of property are going to perform better than others? Looking at inner city markets like a Dockland, South Bank, Melbourne CBD, for your example, and a lot of your clients that are, discussing that. Same way it goes for Sydney. The pockets are like Parramatta, out near the airport, where there's a huge amount of units available. You don't want to be buying in those markets where there's a huge supply and not enough demand. We want to get the reverse. We want to get huge demand, not enough supply. Prices and rents start going up. So that's what we're looking for. That's where the numbers work. And, we are in different markets at different times. Ideally, we like the markets of Brisbane and Perth right now in terms of investment. Home buying, completely different. You've got to, attach a different idea and thought behind that. Like, for example, your school catchments and things like that. If your kids want to go to that school, then you've got to work hard to get into that catchment area, and it will require even more work to do when you're buying.
Exactly. And I suppose that was my next question, I suppose, and you answered that yourself about apartments and supply of the units and obviously demand and supply ratio. Now, let's jump into the next one. I guess the interesting part is rent vesting. What is rent vesting? And obviously, and the next question we'll talk about is why real estate agents are leveraging from buyers agents as well. So let's talk about the rent vesting part first.
Well, I'm a rent investor.
There you go.
I'm in that position. So I rent in Sydney, and I've got investment properties around the country. Look, I've bought and sold in various markets. I had properties in Victoria previously that have sold now. And people don't advocate the idea of buying and selling. It has worked in my personal situation, and it means that I've moved money from one market to another. So my money's always in property. It just means it's in different markets at different times. So I've sold down in Melbourne. I've sold some properties down in New South Wales. Most of my properties are in Queensland. I've got one over in Perth as well.
Right.
But really, I'm a rent investor, rent where I want to live, and buy investment properties elsewhere. If you have a look at a typical example, if you're buying $1 million property in areas closer into the city of Melbourne, closer in the city of Sydney, maybe even in the outskirts, you might find that $1 million property is only getting a rental of $650 or $700 a week. Whereas
Correct.
we're buying an investment property where we just made a purchase on a property in Brisbane, $560,000, and it's $600 a week rent.
Wow.
Typically, we're finding the cash flow is a little bit higher in Perth, where we're buying something for $450,000 and it might be getting $520, $530 a week rent. So,
Yeah.
and that's where your cash flow is increased and your level of risk is reduced because you're getting that higher cash flow through and you're buying at lower levels. And there's still that tenant demand. There's still that buying demand going in there with homes that are in the outskirts, right? Probably similar to what you're doing there, but at a higher price point. And just that markets work in different times as well. So, that's the idea of rent investing and how it all works. I've been successful at it and many others, just making better financial decisions. And I guess most people are emotional, so they want to buy the home first and then start buying investment properties, especially for the young people out there. If you're watching right now, if you're living at home with your parents and you've got a bit of a deposit or, your parents are helping you along on your wealth creation journey and they may be helping you with a part of a deposit or a full deposit on a property and you get employment, you can get a loan, start investing in property while you're at home because you've got reduced expenses, increased serviceability to get a loan while you're at home and not paying a mortgage or rent elsewhere, and you can start investing in your portfolio. That's what I did, and hopefully people consider that at those young ages as well. Maybe they're over in Europe, going on Kentucky tours or roaming around, nightclubs and things like that when they're younger. But, a better financial sense may mean that you get the dream home earlier that you really want.
I think they can leverage from one property to the next one much faster. It's the first one or two properties. And I think if you have the right guidance and if you start right, you can actually leverage your journey much faster. And I suppose that's where the leverage of a buyer's advocate comes in, because you might be looking at a market that you can't really afford to buy. And there's different states and you got no idea. One person will have courage to fly and then start looking and attend the auction. Great initiative though, without preparation, but actions there. And there are people who would not action anything because they've got no idea about the market and they procrastinate for 6 to 12 months. By the time the market goes up, I've bought and sold properties where I thanked myself to make a decision 2 years ago, because 2 years after, that property actually gave me return, which I really invested in my future homes as well. So that just makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. But, the reality is that most people are highly emotional. And, there's 2 million investors in Australia, approximately. There's only less than 20,000 people that have 6 or more investment properties. If you think about it in terms of people, there's a lot of people that are over $200,000 incomes. And if you're in that situation and you're not buying 1 or 2 investment properties and we're getting to 5 or 6, well, there's probably, obviously a lifestyle aspect of it that you're thinking about. And maybe that is for you. Maybe it's you live from paycheck to paycheck, but the risk level is really high. If you lose your job, if someone gets ill, that's the risk. And people feel that there's a lot of risk in property, but I actually think there's more risk in not doing anything than property than actually being involved in it.
100%. I guess you leverage your wealth creation and obviously retiring with perhaps some sort of safety net, if at least you have 1 or 2 rental properties or investment properties. And I've seen people, with all due respect, it's personal choice and personal decisions people make. But I guess my decision is I don't want to end myself in that situation when I'm 50s or 60s, right? And so it's paramount that investments are critical. And also coming down to the point where you're looking at a property and you're negotiating on behalf of the purchasers, from the vendor's perspective, how can a vendor leverage buyer's advocates' role in a transaction? I guess we touched on that briefly in the start. And what do you think buyer's advocate working with agents in the area regularly, does that open up an opportunity for that agent to be a better value agent as well?
Well, yeah, definitely a better value agent because you get bring more buyers to the mix. The more buyers that you get, the more competition from a selling agent's point of view. From a buyer's point of view, like we're looking for the best deal, right? We're looking for a deal that matches strategy. We're looking for the best cash flow that we can obtain, the best potential growth, maybe the best value add, depending on the strategy of the client. So we're really into making relationships. It's not, what you know, sometimes it's more about who you know than what you know. Obviously, we want to know what happens in markets and the data and the research. So that's the background. But the relationships might be the difference of a $50,000 or $100,000. We're doing a property right now that we know in Queensland is a distressed sale or a motivated seller. And we're going to go in with a cash offer, so unconditional, and look to buy that somewhere between 60 or 80,000 below where the market is on this deal. And we're talking about a $300,000 property, which is sort of valued around the 360, 380 mark. So, that's going to be a significant windfall for our client on this one. And they've got the capability to go in with the cash. Not everyone does, but if you have those opportunities, like the motivated seller wants a quick sale, they don't want to continue on and on for the 3 months, 6 months, because sometimes that sort of thing can happen. So if you know where the seller is at with it, you can take the opportunity to get a really good deal that meets our client's point of view to getting a good deal, and also the seller's point of view to get the deal done quickly without any stress as well. So that's
from my perspective there. Sorry to cut you off there. From my perspective, I think what I say as a selling agent to vendors as well is it becomes really paramount. Again, there's a fine line and there's a relationship with buyers advocates with the selling agent. But if a selling agent is really smart and knows how to navigate and negotiate as well, you can leverage off by buyers advocates to create obviously buyer pool, and then you have other buyers as well. Then you can still leverage your buyer can get the right property, and at the same time as an estate agent, we can actually negotiate the best possible price sometimes. And we had a scenario where we recently sold a property at auction where the person who actually ended up buying wanted to buy prior auction through the buyer's agent before, but obviously asking the right questions. And we knew that the buyer's advocate's role is sometimes different depending on the client's needs. Their client wanted that property as well. So I think it made it quite easy for them to buy at auction, but our vendors got roughly about 40,000 more than the reserve. However, the agent's role, on the other hand, was to secure the property for them as well.
Well, like I guess in terms of being a buyer's agent and as a home buyer is a little bit different than being an investment buyer's agent. You got to treat them very differently. If I'm going in, and we've done a couple of owner-occupied purchases as well, they require like a little bit of emotional side of it. You got to know, like, is it going to really work for that family to be in there, or that individual to be in there in the property, or is it going to, and then what kind of price are you paying for it as well? But you're really more so important to know that they're going to like to live there, because you want to hold it for many years. You don't want to be just going in there for a year and then moving out to something else, because then it's all those costs involved, especially at that higher price point. So it is about securing the deal that they really want rather than the price on those particular properties. From an investment point of view, if we don't get the deal, just get another one. Like, it's that simple.
There's properties everywhere across the country, so many of them.
Sure, and I guess if you're a home buying agent or like a real estate agent in a particular area, or a buyer in a particular area, you just want that catchment. You want that location.
Correct,
We're often talking to clients and being very specific with a home buyer. Just say, what streets? And one of the questions that we wanted to talk about is how do you be a better buyer? But it's just like, map out the streets that you really like to live in. What are the houses? You can even go and walk around and just like, I want those houses. Go to your sales agent and go, I want a list of these houses. Go find me one and let them do all the groundwork around it. Like, if you do a bit of work as a buyer, the agent might, be more reflective on you as the to get that deal done as a buyer. So
there's so much you can do to find a property. I think you're absolutely right. You go down and take photos of the property that you like, the facades that you like, the streets that you like, buyer's agent or a selling agent can actually source something out of that list as well. And I think that leads to my next question. Glad that you brought it up. How can you be a better buyer? How can you actually make the conditions favorable to secure the property? And what does a buyer, without obviously calling them immature, but I think what a rookie mistake a buyer can make to secure a property they really want, but they miss out just because of the conditions.
Yeah, I guess finance is a condition one to answer that point. But look, to be a better buyer, firstly, you really want to. It's time. Like, how do I be a buyer? How do I act like a buyer's agent? Is the mindset you want to go in with. So it is. How do I, what areas am I looking? Look at that patch that you want to really buy in. Spend time with agents. So I would go to every open inspection in the area, who are the top agents in that area, be in their back pocket. Go to inspections even if you don't like the house. Help them open the doors, close the windows, be there at the start of the inspection, be at the end of the inspection. You know what will happen? The agents will start getting sick of you, or they'll be your best friend. Obviously, the kindness that you show, giving them a bit of insight, what's happening at the other agents and the other areas of the market, it will go a long way to see you secure the deal over another person.
Exactly.
Obviously, a little bit different when it comes to auction, but sometimes you can go in with an early auction bid, or actually get that bit of relationship with the agent where they give you a little bit of inside word about what's happening. And all these things can actually get you a better deal or secure the deal that you really want. And sometimes you end up paying less than what other people are prepared to pay, and that's can be a differing factor, and one that really gets you across the line where others can't. So I'd rather be doing that than putting my hand up at auction and overpaying for a property that I'm not going to get the finance, or the valuation is going to be short of the mark as well.
Wow. And last question here. We've got 3 minutes to go in the show. Last question is, how would you encourage a buyer to bid at the auction in the order to secure the property? If they really want it, what should a buyer do? Should they stay back, hold back, not bid, or would you recommend them to bid? My recommendation is obviously bid hard.
Yeah, as a selling agent, you will say that, Jazz. It's really trying to get a vibe of your competition around it. So I spent a bit of time going through the open homes and seeing what people, who's coming to the auction, and what their level of interest is. I don't mind starting an auction. If I'm a person that probably more on the aggressive side when it comes to bidding. I want to be front and center. I want everyone to know that I'm there, and I go hard on it. Like, it's go hard or go home. So, I think there's a space sometimes if it's a silent audience that you just do want to hold back. Wait for someone to make the move, because no one ends up wanting to make the move. So just sit back, know your price, and then just go hard and go early. So it might be starting low and then trying to really be aggressive in the bidding. I think is probably most of the times it will run in that way. If it's a slower market, I might adjust the strategy a little bit and start a little bit slower and lower, and then see what the appetite is for other people to go. But once you're in the game, bid as soon as they bid. And sometimes I'll bid above my bid.
Yeah, right. I gotcha. Yep. I love those buyers.
So double bid.
Yeah, love those buyers.
People get freaked out. They get freaked out.
And the ones who take on vendor bid.
Yeah, like I think there's I think the double bid is a bit of a game changer. Like, it's no one really expects it, and they was like, you bid it, you just bid it. I'm like, yeah, I'm going again. Yeah,
exactly.
What do you got? People get scared. I did one last one before we got to wrap up. But Sunshine Coast property, I bid over the phone, and I did a double bid. It got to reserve price, and then the other guy bid once more. And then I did the final bid, and he was willing to go 50 grand above, but pulled out because he thought I was going to keep going. So instead of securing it at 850, we ended up getting it at 803. So You know, that's the difference in how you can auction bid and reign supreme over other people when, you know, they just don't know what they're doing. And obviously, the advantage was on he only inspected the property once. He was an interstate bidder as well. And he, you know, didn't have enough knowledge and experience, but willing to go higher. But he just pulled out. He was like, oh, this could go to 900. What's the point?
Wow. And I think as a smart selling agent, that's where the role comes in. As a vendors, you got to understand, guys, is that your selling agent is confident enough in public speaking. That is a trait. And they are confident in crowd work and make sure that they are encouraging bidders. Versus I've seen some of the times at auctions, the agent standing right next to the auctioneer, hoping and waiting for the buyers. And remember, the buyers may have fear in public speaking or announcing bids. So you got to be in the crowd helping and assisting them and perhaps announcing bids.
Definitely on a sales agent's point of view, they really want to be strong and talking to bidders like me or talking to other bidders that's his tactics. You want to really see that through. But, you know, I probably would stop my bids if that's the case. And it was someone like you, Jazz, in the crowd talking to those other bidders and trying to bid them up. I'd just like, okay, my number's out. I go to another auction. So, you know, you can perform these acts on, you know, some sales, but it won't work on others. You know, you're not going to win an auction every single time. The auctions that I love and I've been successful at, 2 of them, I've been the only bidder. So, and this is both for Sydney properties, both in times when it was, you know, a little bit slower market, and it's just boomed after that.
Yeah, there you go, mate. Thank you so much for your insights. As always, love having you on our show. And you are the industry expert and industry authority when it comes into buying.
You know what I say, Jazz, all the time?
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah. And we'll say at the end, bye. But that bye is different to buy.
Just keep buying, mate. You buy a property in Australia, look at the immigration coming into Australia. You know, in your area, Point Cook, right? The amount of people moving into the area is phenomenal. And you just think it's like you hold property for 20 years, you're going to win.
Exactly.
Just hold it.
Exactly. Long time game, guys. Long time game. All right. Here's a wrap. And thank you so much, Luke, once again. Really appreciate your time. And we look forward to having you on another show very soon as well.
Thanks, Jazz. Thanks, viewers. Hopefully it helps.
Guys, appreciate your time. Thank you so much. That was Luke Moroney from Search Party Properties. Reach out if you need any help from him.